So hello fellow Earthlings, this is Earthling 6455463728, and I wanted to talk about another car mechanic car story. This is more generic and it's also a little bit of a positive outcome after all of it. So when I came back home to my mom to live with her and my grandma, etc., I realized that my mother, every couple years or so, she would go and try to have her CV joints repaired. Now, if you don't know what that is, it's the another way of saying it is the differential joints. It's basically the mechanism that allows a car to have, when a car turns, the side that it's turning towards, that wheel does not have to turn very much compared to the outer wheel. So you need some sort of mechanism that allows the side that the car is turning on to have a differential amount of turning compared to the outer wheel. If that joint works properly, you're not going to hear any noises or so. Basically, everything is going to be fine. If it is lacking in grease, there's supposed to be a boot that fits over that joint and contains grease that allows the joint to be well lubricated and to turn without a problem. If there's a cut in the boot, the boot gets old and the rubber or the plastic cracks, then the grease starts to come out and the joint isn't well lubricated, and you begin to hear noises like clack, 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 clack when the car turns a corner or anything like that. So that's what would happen with my mother's car. She would have that noise, and let me tell you, I did not pay attention to that once, and I just drove the car for however long. One day I was at a traffic light in the middle of the night, just gone to see a movie, and that sucker, as soon as I pressed the gas, bang! And when I went out to take a look at it, the car would not move. It would not move forward at all. When I went to take a look at it, there was just something that was hanging and dropping maybe thick gobs of grease onto the road, and that was it. I'd been hearing the noise forever, but I just never made the time to go and repair it. And that's what happened. Without enough lubrication, when the joint tried to do its due, it just broke. And that was it. And eventually I had to get that repaired, and I got my car. Well, before I got it repaired, I didn't have enough money, and the car got towed. Then I needed to get money to pay the people who towed it and to get back my car and then to repair it. So it became a huge thing. It is pretty awful what can happen to you when you don't have enough money to do things, and when you let things go, basically. They say a stitch in time saves nine. Anyway, my mother would have that noise when she turned the corners, and eventually she would go to a particular company whom I loathe, and I loathe because of this. She would go there, and within, we're talking about 10 minutes, they would allegedly have repaired this thing, and I didn't know any better, so I went with her a number of times. And what would happen would be that maybe 1, 2, 3 weeks later, the noise would be back, and it would continue to get louder and louder until she would take it to them to get repaired again. And they would do the same thing, which was essentially nothing. And it wasn't like, this was a chain. It was different locations that my mother took her vehicle to, and they treated her car the same way. The same temporary bogus repair is what they did. So I got fed up of seeing that happen repeatedly, and I decided, okay, let me take out the book and see how to do this. And I did, and it was intimidating as heck to consider what they were saying. I had to jack up the car, and then you have to take off the wheel, get the brakes and stuff off. Then you have to, there's some kind of a shaft that you have to remove. It's all pretty scary stuff, and you're supposed to probably go to a mechanic, a metal workshop, because there's a part of it that if you look at some YouTube videos, they tell you to do this and that and the other. And it's not this, that, and the other. It's just one thing. Basically, you put the shaft into a pipe that it can sleeve into, and then you drop it. Well, the shaft that's attached to the CV joint basically has to be it's longer, and then you drop the whole pipe onto the ground. So basically the force of the pipe dropping is supposed to pop and disconnect the joint, make it fall apart, and you can put on a new joint and all this other stuff. As it turned out, no amount of doing what the YouTube video said helped. It didn't do anything. So I couldn't put on a new joint. At least not on one side. Yeah, well, that was the side that was making the noise. So the only thing that I could do was to stuff as much grease as possible into a new boot, a new sleeve, and put it back, tighten everything up with the CV joint. Now, I don't know if you've done anything like this before, but I was just so scared that I was making a mistake, that, if I heard the slightest noise, there was occasions where I just took the whole thing apart again and forced more grease into it, and until I was satisfied that there was no more grease that I could put into the joint, and it was as tight as possible, and that was that. Lucky for me, I guess I did a good enough job, because 2 or 3 weeks later there was no noise still, after I was finished with everything. So I had done a better job. And don't get me wrong, this thing took forever. It took like 5 hours the first day, and then when I was trying to do it again, maybe it took less than that, because I knew what I was doing. But from then to now, I have not heard that noise, that clack, 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 clack. I have not heard it. It must be like 7-8 years by now. The joint has been replaced. Well, not has it been replaced? Well, basically, the guy, there's a guy who, like I mentioned in my other video, he makes mistakes, but he's cheap, and he has done work on the joint and the sleeve to make sure that it's a new sleeve when it cracks, and put more grease in it and everything. So, and he charges half the price. When he like after about 5 years, and I realized, hey, the joint must be cracked, because I'm seeing the grease leaking out, and it, since the car wheel turns so fast, you basically are seeing like the grease spread on the inside of the wheel well of the tire. Is that the right way of saying it? So I would see the grease from time to time and realize, it must be leaking, and then I would take it to the guy, because I don't want to have to go through that whole long thing. And when maybe 5 years later, when it needed addressing again, and at this time it wasn't making any noise yet still, but the boot probably needed replacing, because I was seeing signs that the grease on the inside, the lubrication, was leaking. and he did his thing, and it hasn't made that noise since. And this was, a well-respected mechanics business, automobile business, repair business. And I'm disappointed in them, but things like this make me realize that you just can't trust anybody. I mean, trust is something, not that you see it on a TV screen and you think, okay, well, yeah, I can trust them. That's not how trust works. Trust is like with this guy, like I mentioned, who I know what needs to be done, and I know that I don't want to do it. But having had him do a lot of work, he has my trust, even though he makes mistakes. So, for example, like right now, the car is making a bit of an unsettling noise when it gets to higher speeds, but luckily it hasn't, nothing bad has happened. And I just feel like when this guy put back together, there was another problem with, I guess, the bearings of the car. And I think when he put things back together, he probably didn't shove something in as far as it should have gone. So that's probably why it's making a little bit noise. It's staying together, and it's mainly just the noise, but yeah. So if I feel like I really need some extra work, maybe I might take it apart and try to get rid of that noise. But for the moment, I trust him, and there's nothing that's really pressing that I have to say, whoa, that needs straightening out. So, yeah, guys, wish me lucks. You can like or unlike. You can comment about it. You can subscribe if you'd like, and or share. Peace.